then basically I'm ready for you to go live, and then I can...
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it.
So
You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind,
start loading
driving you mad.
for when it...
It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you want to know what it is? It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
You're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I am Death. To the New World Order, streaming to you live at freethinkradio.com, unitedtruthseekers.com, and eternally at d2nwo.com.
Live and at large, it's the one 9/11 mystery that endures. World Trade Center building number 7.
You hear that?
Keep your eye on that building. It'll be coming down soon.
They were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull. And then we watched the building collapse.
And so the first one was likely an accident, the second one was an attack, and the third was a declaration of war.
The publication of the Bush memoir fills in some of what we did not know about 9/11. But no official account so far addresses the issue now being raised in an extraordinary ad campaign.
I lost my son,
my nephew,
my uncle,
my son,
on September 11th, 2001.
Most people don't know that a third tower fell on September 11th.
World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper, was not hit by a plane.
Although the official explanation is that fire brought down Building 7.
Over 1,200 architects and engineers have looked into the evidence
and believe there is more to the story.
Up until now, only those considered nut jobs question the official conclusion that office fires caused by the nearby catastrophe of the towers collapsing brought down building number 7.
But I do believe that it is the first time in history that fire has ever melted steel. I do believe that it defies physics for the World Trade Center Tower 7, Building 7, which collapsed in on itself. It is impossible for a building to fall the way it fell without explosives being involved.
And if explosives were involved, that would mean that the most obnoxious protesters in recent years are right.
If you hear the shouting, it's a group of demonstrators who've come. 9/11 was an inside job. Oh, get a life. Get a life. 9/11 was an inside job.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Geraldo Rivera, and that noisy demonstration was more than 2 years ago. But the folks behind that TV ad you saw earlier are not so easy to dismiss as those demonstrators were. And what caught my eye is their claim that more than 1,300 architects and engineers examined the evidence about Building 7's collapse and disagree with the official report issued by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Before we examine what they have, this heads up. Also tonight, we probe the remorseless Randall Moore, the creep who raped and murdered his own wife and then outrageously taunted her family at his sentencing. And we're live tonight on the bloody Mexico border, the most dangerous place on earth right now. Those stories coming up. But up front tonight, Building 7 was no ordinary building. Among other key tenants, including several intelligence and law enforcement agencies, it also housed New York City's Emergency Operations Center, known as Mayor Giuliani's bunker. Here to tell us what they know about its collapse and why they question the official conclusions are Bob McIlvaine, whose son died in the World Trade Center, and Tony Zambati, a mechanical engineer. Nice to see you guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Geraldo.
Our condolences, obviously, for your loss. But Tony, let me start with you. You're an engineer. Are you suggesting that the official account that Building 7 collapsed because of the fire melting the steel or in some other ways, destroying the integrity, the structural integrity of the building, that's false? You think that that's false?
Yes, I do. And for a couple reasons. One is that Building 7 came down. It went into a sudden collapse across the full width and length of the building. for 2.25 seconds, which amounted to 105 feet, or 8 stories, 8 13-foot tall stories. It was in full free fall acceleration. That is impossible because in a natural collapse, columns would have to buckle. When columns buckle, there is a minimum resistance. It's asymptotic, if you know what that means. That means it never goes to zero. So it's impossible. You can't reach.
So here's what, I guess in layman's terms, just get my hands here, Peter. So what he's saying is that the top floor collapses, hits the next floor, hits the next floor, hits the next floor. So it's bang, 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 bang. The weight of the upper floors.
It would slow down. What I'm trying to say is it was in full free fall acceleration. All of its potential energy was being converted to motion.
Instead of what I just described, the thing just collapsed like a pancake.
It just came down.
And so what are you suggesting brought it down, Tony?
I'm suggesting there was some form of demolition devices in that building for 8 stories or more.
You think that the explosives brought down Building 7?
Some form of demolition device. I'm not pretending to know what it is. I am saying that it was in free fall acceleration.
All right, let me ask you this.
Admitted to that.
Okay, let me ask you this before I get to Dad, before I get to Bob here. We've all seen old, obsolete buildings and public housing in other places outlive their usefulness, being demolished by the professionals who can actually collapse a building right in its own footprint. That's what it looks like happened to Building 7. Do you believe that's what happened?
Yes, I do believe that's what happened.
And why do you think they're lying about it?
I don't really know all the details of why they're lying about it. I can't read their minds. All I can say is, scientifically, it's impossible for fire to have done what we see.
And Bob, these 1,300 engineers and architects who agree with you and some of the other relatives' families. I know you found your son just a couple of days after the disaster. He was outside. I don't want to get into the details of how you believe he died, but these architects and engineers, do they support your contention? Do you believe that it was an inside job, that 9/11 was an inside job?
All right, Geraldo, I believe it was an inside job, okay? I'm here
you believe our government?
All right, wait, please. But the thing is, we don't have enough time to get into the reasons of that. We set up this Building What campaign. We saw the...
Building What?
.org.
BuildingWhat.org.
The reason we have that is because Judge Lehner, when we had a petition to have a new investigation in New York City about Building 7. And when the lawyers...
And you're asking the New York City Council. I don't want to interrupt also to reopen.
So I know we don't have the time, but anyway, he said, building what? Because no one has any idea about Building 7. So because I believe in... I've talked to so many firemen, so many EMS workers, policemen, who talk about the explosions. And I know you don't want to get into my son, but I feel my son died from an explosion. I went to all the 9/11 Commission hearings. I've been researching this for 9 years.
So what do you want? Let's get to the bottom line before we're out of time.
I want truth. I've been lied to. I mean, it's beyond a reasonable doubt that the 9/11 Commission did not tell this story.
9/11 Commission barely mentioned Building 7, if at all.
Right.
Okay, what forum do you want the investigation in?
Well, the forum, what we want it is in New York City right now, because New York City, we feel, has an obligation to investigate 9/11.
So before we're out of time completely, Bob, do you want specifically the New York City Council to open its own investigation of the Building 7 collapse?
Absolutely.
And that would satisfy you if they did that?
Well, I'm not done. I'm still a parent. I'm a parent who has an obligation to find out why my son was murdered. As far as this show and New York City, I want the investigation. That will not be sufficient enough.
Your wound. I get that.
And I'm going beyond that.
But it's the beginning.
Of course it's the beginning, but that's why I support this Building What campaign.
Bob McIlvaine, we thank you. Tony Zambati, thank you very much. It is an intriguing topic. I certainly am much more open-minded about it than I was, and it is because of the involvement of the 9/11 families and all these engineers and architects. Clearly, they know more than I do. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So Geraldo Rivera bows to the architects and the engineers and the white lab coats and the people who have been to college, been to institutions, but calls us a bunch of crazy people. But it's turning out, of course, that us crazy people were right all along. And this should come as no surprise, as it is blatantly obvious on its face that those were controlled demolitions. Now, this broadcast, I don't want anybody to say, oh, well, I know about 9/11. or, oh, I don't want to hear about 9/11, and turn the broadcast off because you are listening to Death to the New World Order. 9/11 is only being presented as one part of a facet, and in fact it is essentially evidence used against the New World Order to get you out of the state of mind control that you're in, to make you see the bigger picture. And I'll introduce other things into this. For instance, global warming. I mean, if they're lying to you about 9/11, and you probably already know they're lying to you about global warming, why did they make up all this stuff about global warming? Who made it up? Who made up the lies about 9/11? Who knocked the buildings down if it wasn't the airplanes? See, it's not enough to realize 9/11 may have been an inside job. It's not enough to realize that it was. You have to ask who did it. Who covered it up for a decade? Who started the global warming lie and why? Because the simple bottom line is it's the same people. It is the same evil organization behind all of these lies and many, many more. Now, if you are living in a world where there is some hidden organization constantly lying to the people, or as we would refer to you as, the sheeple, the herd, the ignorant masses, and this is not, a reference that we make out of an air of superiority. That's how they refer to you. They will refer to you as the useless eaters. We refer to you as people who still haven't woken up, people who are still sleeping, people who are still under mind control. And we're doing everything we can do to bring you out of it, to bring you out of that trance. I'm doing everything I can do short of coming up and clubbing you in the face. Because honestly, that's the way I would rather do it. I mean, how would you feel if you were walking down the street one day and some stranger who just happened to look exactly like me beat you upside the head with a baseball bat? And you're laying there. You know how the side of the road is kind of curved, so and you're laying there, and the blood is coming out your mouth onto the pavement. And you're like, I can't believe this. I'm getting mugged. I can't believe I'm getting mugged. But at least I don't have that much money in my wallet right now. And I don't want your wallet. All I want you to do is wake the fuck up. So you're like, well, why? Why is this guy harassing me? Why is he accosting me and not demanding my money? And the same can be said of this broadcast. You can go to my website, d2nwo.com. There's no donate button. There's nothing for sale but the truth. I'm not trying to steal your money. I'm trying to save your soul. It is said that people are supposed to live their life in a righteous manner if they're going to make it to heaven, for instance. But how can you do this if you don't know fact from fiction? If you don't know truth from lies? How can you possibly live a good moral life if you think the right thing to do is to bomb people who never attacked you? You're being lied to in so many ways, it is impossible for you to even comprehend it. Literally impossible. And I could only refer you to the movie The Matrix. What happened when Neo first realized the truth about reality? He started blacking out and he vomited. Now, I haven't done that because I woke up over a period of years. But a lot of times nowadays, people are waking up in a more rapid fashion because there is information out there. The internet is now full of proof. 9/11, it's like my floors in my house. It's an open secret. You don't know what kind of floors I have. Maybe my office that I'm in right now is carpeted. Or maybe there's tiles on the floor. Or maybe it's hardwood. It's an open secret. In other words, all you have to do is look. The evidence is there. It's blatantly obvious. You just have to look. What did Christ say? Seek and ye will find. Seek the truth about 9/11. Seek the truth about global warming. Seek the truth about who is spreading all of these lies and why. Because you will come face to face with true evil. Evil as it existed throughout all of history. And you will find that the things that are being perpetrated upon the human race right now are no different. Are no different. The template has always been the same. The only difference is now we've decoded it. We've figured it out. And we have talked. We have spread the word. We've got websites. We've got broadcasts, blogs. You name it. We're doing everything we can. The cat's out of the bag. It's an open secret. All you have to do is look. And they're hardwood. You're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I am death to the New World Order, streaming to you live at freethinkradio.com, unitedtruthseekers.com, and eternally at d2nwo.com.
Some people appear to have known the imminent future on that fateful day. FEMA had arrived in New York on Monday night, ready for a bioterror drill. Spokesman Tom Kenny to Dan Rather.
To be honest with you, we arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning. And not until today did we get a full opportunity to work the entire site other than the spot at Church and Day to which we were deployed.
And Rudy Giuliani, mayor of New York, tells ABC's Peter Jennings that he was aware the towers would be coming down.
What is going on now is a massive rescue effort.
Do you believe it's hundreds or thousands?
I really don't want to say right now, Peter. I think it's going to be a horrible number. I saw people jumping out of the World Trade Center. I saw some of the firefighters who I know going into the building. And we were in a building in which we were trapped for about 10-15 minutes. And we set up headquarters at 75 Barclay Street, which was right there with the police commissioner, the fire commissioner, the head of emergency management. And we were operating out of there when we were told that the World Trade Center was going to collapse. The World Trade Center was going to collapse. It was going to collapse. It was going to collapse.
Similarly, Larry Silverstein, new leaseholder of the World Trade Center, regretfully declared that a decision was made to pull Building 7 by the end of the day, the last structure added to the World Trade Center complex. Let's hear Mr. Silverstein's actual words, delivered for our benefit in the 2002 PBS documentary America Rebuilds.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Blast, shoot, blow, and pull are terms used in the demolition industry to refer to bringing down buildings, bridges, and other structures.
Because I actually blew the hospital down that I was born in.
Originally, we had figured to shoot it, let it drop straight down.
Then, watch Demolition Dynamics attempt a big blast.
And from Ground Zero's own post-disaster wrecking crew.
By mid-December, the Department of Design and Construction had leveled World Trade Center buildings 4 and 5.
Hello? Oh, we're getting ready to pull building 6.
Silverstein, a commercial real estate tycoon with international political connections, acquired a 99-year lease on the World Trade Center complex in the spring of 2001. Throughout the summer, he reworked the insurance policies on his new property, making sure that it was covered for acts of terrorism. Explicit in the lease agreement was Silverstein's right to rebuild the complex if it were destroyed. After 9/11, Mr. Silverstein fought his insurers in court to obtain double his policy limits for the destruction of his property, maintaining that the double hijacking constituted 2 disasters caused by terrorists, not just one. He won and was awarded over $7 billion, a magnificent return on his original $15 million investment.
My first reaction is to think about the families of those people, the tragedy, the magnitude of it. However, I firmly believe that we should rebuild.
Just in the last few seconds, another building, building number 7, one of the buildings in support of the World Trade Center towers, has collapsed.
World Trade 7, functioning as the command center for the complex, housed giant diesel backup and oxygen systems, the mayor's protected emergency bunker, and offices for the CIA, Secret Service, Department of Defense, and Securities and Exchange Commission. Its other tenants were insurance companies, brokerages, and banks. No plane hit Building 7, but at 5:20 p.m. on September 11th, it collapsed in a heap on the ground. Some damage to Building 7 is said to have been caused by debris from Tower 1. Though this New York Times article tells us Building 7 burned like a giant torch, the only visuals that exist are of unidentified smoke and a few small fires. Compare this to the wallops sustained by World Trade Center 3, 4, 5, and 6. Positioned right below the towers, damage to the surrounding World Trade Center buildings was infinitely worse. Still, the structures held up. But somehow, rescue workers knew that Building 7 would fall.
You hear that?
Keep your eye on that building. It'll be coming down soon.
A 47-story skyscraper, Building 7 folded neatly in 6.5 seconds. A textbook descent right into its footprint. Silverstein Properties now tells us that its owner was referring to the team of firefighters inside the building when he spoke of the decision to pulling the firemen out of harm's way. However, there were no firefighters in Building 7, according to FEMA, NIST, and Fire Chief Frank Fellini. They were ordered out at 11:30 that morning. 6 hours later, the building came down.
You know, we heard this sound that sounded like a clap of thunder. Turned around, it looked like there was a shock wave ripping through the building, and the windows all busted out, and you know, it was horrifying. About a second later, the bottom floor caves out, and the building followed after that.
Radio host Alex Jones notes the mark of a classic implosion.
This is a photo taken 1 second into Building 7's collapse. Notice the crimp. If we look at other controlled demolitions, we see that they first blow one of the central columns so the building falls in on itself. If you don't do this, the building falls outward and can damage surrounding structures. Building 7 had a classic crimp or wedge. Its central column was blown out first, so it didn't structurally damage buildings just a few feet away from it.
Remember the mayor's emergency bunker? Ensconced on the 23rd floor of Building 7, it was retrofitted with superglass, water, oxygen, and its own generator. But Mayor Giuliani chose to find emergency shelter elsewhere on September 11th. Why Building 7? Even the media and its experts were confused. The History Channel interviews structural engineer Ramon Gilsans, who points out the obvious crimp and even speaks of the implosion.
Engineers are not just focusing on the Twin Towers. The most disturbing structural event was not that the Twin Towers fell, but that Tower 7, ignited by flying debris, fell due to fire alone.
Building 7 was a steel frame building, and is the first steel frame building that has collapsed due to fire. The failure of the building was an implosion. So it failed completely different than Towers 1 and 2, in which the floors failed first.
Why Building 7? Let's ask the question again. As the WTC Command Center, was it the hub for the 9/11 plan? Also, in 6.5 seconds, lost forever were thousands of SEC case files on corporate fraud, including those relating to the notorious activities of giants WorldCom and Enron. A few indictments for stock fraud, but what of the $70 billion California electricity swindle? It disappeared.
All right, so back to the broadcast now, and we're going to hit this from several angles. But first and foremost, I need you to understand what's going on here. At least what started a decade ago, which is that this is a case being tried by the public. Every single person is a juror on this trial. And while 9/11 is, again, like my hardwood floors, an open secret, all you have to do is look. The evidence is overwhelming. A lot of people, of course, will never look. That's when it is our job to explain them what happened, to show them the truth. And just like a court case, you have to give evidence. Here's Exhibit A, here's Exhibit B, and so on. So we're going to talk a little bit about how a court case works. You know, it's like at West Point, cadets are told that amateurs discuss tactics while professionals discuss logistics. And court cases are very similar to this in that in litigation, and especially in civil litigation, amateurs, you know, talk about a burden of proof, while professionals focus on the theory of the case. Now, I know this may sound a little bit technical, but it's going somewhere, and people need to pay attention. The simple bottom line is that, you know, in terms of modern civil litigation, the burden of proof has been reduced to a technical question which has little practical importance to the outcome of a trial. And to put this as simple as I can, the simplest way that I can put this, civil litigation is won or lost based on who can persuade the jury that the proof fits their case. In other words, why do you think the defense gets to talk to the jury first in closing? Or last? The defense talks last in closing. The New World Order, who carried out this act, created the framework, the argument that, hey, these were 19 Muslims, hijacked jets, used these razor blades, cut up the stewardess, flew the planes in the building, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's on Fox, it's on CNN, it's on MSNBC. What are you going to do about that? You see? And then it's up to the defense to undo, to unravel all the lies foisted upon the entire world by the New World Order controlled mainstream media, by the government, politicians, by teachers in people's classrooms when they were in school growing up. They want to get that out there first, because then it's not a matter of finding the truth in 9/11, it's also a matter of unraveling the massive amount of lies that have been already put out there, that have been injected into people's minds. That's the simplest way that I can put on it. The experts agree the best way to meet the burden of persuasion necessary to win a case is to formulate a theory of the case and to plan trial strategy around it. And that's what they did. They created this plan, this plot. They conspired, if you will. And they strategized. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to say happened. This is how we're going to convince the American people. This is what we're going to say when people question this. This is what we're going to say when people question that. And we've seen people come out of the woodwork over the years, both directly addressing things and disinformation agents and so on. You have to recognize that the proof of what happened on 9/11 is so vast, it's beyond your comprehension. And if all you're doing is taking other people's word for it, watching what's on television, you don't have a clue. You don't have a clue in the face of the earth. Now I'm going to look into a little bit of information here, because again, the internet is your number one resource. Where are you looking at me at? The internet. They're never going to let me on television, on Fox or on CNN. Anybody you see on television is there to deceive you. That's the first thing you have to understand. In 1933, and this is for people who are a little bit newer and a little bit new to history itself. And let's face it, I mean, it's not taught in our schools. Real history, true history is never taught. In 1933, the Reichstag fire, it'll have to wait. You're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I am death to the New World Order, streaming to you live at freethinkradio.com, unitedtruthseekers.com, and eternally at d2nwo.com.
Building number 7 at the World Trade Center was a 47-story building with a steel frame. No airplane crashed into it, nor did the towers fall onto it. However, this building disintegrated on September 11th. This satellite image shows the World Trade Center about a year before the attack. Building 7 is the tall building at the top. Building number 1 is the North Tower. You can distinguish it from the South Tower by its antenna. Buildings 4, 5, and 6 were office buildings. Building 3 was a hotel. The attack on September 11th destroyed all 7 of these buildings, and it damaged surrounding buildings as well. Here is a view from an airplane of the rubble of Building 7. The pile is very small. How did a 47-story steel building crumble into such a tiny pile of rubble? The Bush administration wants us to believe that fire caused it to disintegrate. Fires started in Building 7 at around 9 o'clock in the morning, a few moments after the plane crashed into the South Tower. These fires burned slowly all day. This photo shows the fires at 3 p.m. The fires are not easy to see because they are small, and the air is full of dust and smoke. Nearby buildings and reflections make it difficult to figure out where Building 7 is, so I'll fade out the other buildings for a moment so that you can see Building 7 more clearly. There are flames coming from only a few of the thousands of windows of this large building. Most floors do not have fires, and those that do are burning in a few small areas only. Compared to other office fires, these are small. Why didn't the sprinkler system extinguish them? This photograph shows the rear of Building 7. This side of the building doesn't have many fires either. There are no fires anywhere along the base of the building. Incidentally, in the background of this photograph are buildings number 5 on the left and 6 on the right. Both of those buildings have very serious fires burning inside. The government has never bothered to explain how Building 5 ended up with such serious fires. Despite the fact that the fires in Building 7 were so small that the sprinkler system should have extinguished them, at about 5:30 in the evening, the building suddenly imploded and crumbled into a pile of rubble. How did a few small fires cause Building 7 to collapse? According to Bill Manning, editor-in-chief of Fire Engineering, a magazine for fire departments, fire has never destroyed a steel building.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Now the term pull, which you just saw Larry Silverstein use, is an industry term that means to demolish, a controlled demolition. What did Larry Silverstein exactly say here? Did he say World Trade Center 7 was a controlled demolition? If so, is it conceivable that through all the melee and hysteria that was going on the morning of September 11th, a demolition crew could have came in and taken down World Trade Center 7 within 7 hours? Most controlled demolitions take up to 2 weeks in intense planning to make happen. If this is the case, the only explanation that makes sense is that a controlled demolition was planned way in advance of September 11, 2001.
Now you may be asking, why is he talking about Building 7? And obviously it's because Building 7 is one of the stronger proofs of what happened on that day. There were a lot of aspects of 9/11, and I'm not going to go into all the details. They're readily available on the internet. The FBI finding passports in pristine condition in the rubble immediately after the towers collapsed. passports allegedly that were in the luggage of the alleged terrorists who plowed into the building? It's impossible. It's completely impossible. First off, they would have been destroyed. If the fires were so hot that the towers collapsed, wouldn't the passports made of paper have burned up? Second off, even finding them, if they, miraculously survived, would be a needle in a haystack scenario. It's impossible. But the American sheeple keep believing in these fairy tales. Now, this is something that they only said a few times on the news before they realized, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. Nobody's going to believe this, and then they stopped saying it. But of course, we have it recorded. There is so much evidence that the lies of 9/11 are just that they're lies. That I'm not even going to go into it. I'm just going to zoom out and get you to focus on the big picture, which is that this is, as I said, like a case, and you are like a juror, and you have to come to a decision. Did they make all this up? Who are they? Or is everything as we were told? In 1933, the Reichstag fire, which was allowed to happen, and that's because the lone arsonist had been overheard boasting he wanted to burn the building and given technical assistance to make sure it happened. Basically, Hitler burned down his headquarters in 1933. You understand? In 2001, the New World Order destroyed the World Trade Center. Both did it for the same reason. In 1941, the Pearl Harbor attack was allowed to happen to galvanize public opinion to support war. That's why Hitler did it. That's why it was allowed to happen in Pearl Harbor. And that's why it happened on 9/11. It's all about manipulating the masses to gain that support. Why do you think, for instance, and I haven't researched into this specifically, but I'll bet you all the Vietnam War protests, 10-1, they fanned the flames of the protests because they were like, oh, it's about time to pull out of Vietnam. So in other words, they don't even look at things in terms of, doing what's right, doing what's wrong. They look at things in terms of, this is what we want to do. Now get the people to think that it's right. Get the people to think that this is the right thing to do right now. That's how they do it. This is called problem, reaction, solution. Just go to YouTube and put in problem, reaction, solution. Plenty of people, including myself, have made videos on this simple concept, which is that they decide what they want, and then they create a problem that gets you to want them to do what they want to do. As I said, the evidence as it relates to 9/11 is completely overwhelming. You heard the man say, pull it. That means demolish the building. That's Larry Silverstein. Now, I'm not going to go into the fact, yes, he's a Jew. Larry Silverstein is a Jew. I don't focus on Jews. I'm not a Nazi. I don't know that it's all about Zionism. I'm focusing on the facts here. On September 14, 2002, the PBS aired a documentary. Well, we just played that video, didn't we? We just showed you Larry Silverstein's quote. We played it for you. You know, it's strange because now that I'm broadcasting video, most of what I want to talk about in an article, it's already played on the video. So we're in good shape there. Now, there's been plenty of documentaries. There's books written about this. As I said, it's an open secret. Nobody, well, there's people that don't want you to know this, but they can't stop us. You understand? They can't stop us. You can read books, Crossing the Rubicon, The Decline of the American Empire at the End of the Age of Oil. You can read The Terror Timeline, year by year, day by day, minute by minute, by Paul Thompson. You can read The War on Truth. You can read The Road to 9/11. There's documentaries, there's movies. In fact, I think Sunday I'm going to screen a movie. I think it's called, I don't know what it's called. Somebody gave it to me in New York, and it's Supposed to be one of the best ones out there. Maybe it was 9/11 explosive evidence. I'll screen it Sunday on the broadcast. But there's already movies out there. 9/11, Press for Truth. The Truth and the Lies of 9/11. And there's Denial Stops Here, from 9/11 to peak oil and beyond. And a lot of these folks are on YouTube. So put these things in YouTube, and there you go. You don't have to go out and buy it. The truth is free. That's one thing that really works to your advantage as somebody who's trying to figure out the truth of what's going on in the world. Lies are free in the sense that the New World Order pays people to lie to you and control your mind. The truth is free also because people they just intrinsically want people to know the truth. And so people like me are willing to go out of our way, spend our time and spend our money getting the truth to you for free. So go to YouTube, put in 9/11 Citizens Commission, put in The Great Deception in YouTube. Go to YouTube and put in The Great Conspiracy, 9/11. Put in The Power of Nightmares, which almost certainly probably talks about fear-based mind control. That's what this is. It's trauma-based mind control. They control your mind because you are afraid of the boogeyman. The boogeyman, or Osama bin Laden, or the Muslims, or radical Islam. Terror, terror, terror. War on terror. Mind control. You have to put the brakes on it. You're letting them rent space in your head. It's affecting your actions. It's affecting your life. No more fear. And that's something I'll be broadcasting more about in the future. People have to overcome the fear that has been instilled in them. I know when I first realized what was going on, I was enraged. I thought all the Muslims finally attacked us because I was on to the whole Muslim thing a long time ago. And I was like, oh, they finally attacked us. I can't believe it. You know, I want to kill them. And so I had a great rage built up inside of me. And then when I found out, of course, that it wasn't the Muslims, the rage didn't go anywhere. It was simply redirected. As I realized who the real enemy was, my rage was redirected towards the New World Order. Now, I don't expect everyone to come to this conclusion very soon because it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that there is a global ruling elite, that nations are a farce, that politics is street theater. What's really street theater? The Tea Party. The Occupy movement, it's all fake, it's all staged, it's all controlled opposition. Lenin said the greatest way to control your opposition, Lenin, the greatest way to control your opposition is to lead it. I will add to that, the easiest way to lead your opposition is to start it. And that's what the Occupy movement is. What's easier than seizing the reins of an opposition against you that's already started is to create your own opposition and fake like they hate you. And your enemies jump on board. Throw on their Guy Fawkes masks. And then they sit around and occupy. As I said, the truth is going to be difficult for some people to believe. So you've just got to let the truth get its foot in the door. And that starts with realizing that there are a lot of lies about 9/11. Something does not add up, and asking, why are they lying to you? Why are they lying about this? What is the truth of this? Who really did it and why? And I'm debating not even answering these questions. I really think that may be the way to do this broadcast. Basically, leave you hanging. And I'll come back, Monday, and I won't even talk about it. And that's the way I think people should be approached. I think that, you should club them in the face. And while they're laying there on the pavement bleeding, thinking they're about to be mugged, tell them the truth and walk away. Let them chew it over for a while. They can sit there in the emergency room, holding their jaw that's, hurting real bad with the blood coming out of their mouth and think, what the hell just happened to me? Because nobody can believe the truth the first time they hear it, even the second time. You have to figure it out for yourself. We can lead you along the way, but it's like the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, my saying is, you can lead somebody to the truth, but you can't make them think. And that's exactly the situation that we're in. They have to be left alone to think. And there are people who are going to watch this on YouTube. At first, oh, this guy's crazy. This guy's nuts. Oh, but there's Geraldo. Geraldo's talking about it like maybe there's some legitimacy. By the time you get to the end of the broadcast, you think, yeah, he's probably nuts. I probably don't want to know nothing else about this. That's fine. That's fine. You know, you watch the video, that's good enough for me. Pay attention at the end. When you see the closing song by Embed, you're going to see video highlighted showing explosive plumes that are unexplained. In other words, and there's a word for these, they're called squibs. They're explosions going off at various parts of the building. Strategically, it's a controlled demolition, just like any other you've seen on the news. You know how the local news will, oh, the football stadium's being torn down. And then it comes down. Same thing, folks. That's what 9/11 was. And Embed did a good job of the video in that they highlighted the explosion so you'll see them. And you'll be like, well, I didn't see that on the news. I didn't see that on the news. Well, look at that one right there. I didn't see that. Of course you didn't see it. All you saw was what they wanted you to see, and that's all you'll see tonight when you watch your local news. All you will see is what they want you to see. All you will ever know is what they want you to know. Unless you tune in to somebody like me, and I am on every night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Sundays, unless you tune in to somebody like me or you find other good sources of information, all you will ever know is what they want you to know, and what they want you to know is the truth. How do you control somebody? You don't free them. You don't tell them the truth. You lie to them. You keep them enslaved in their own minds. That's the state of the world today. That's the state of the world today. We are the new disciples, disciples of the truth. I'm not saying I'm God. Frankly, what I'm saying is that you're all fucking retarded. You're all so stupid that somebody who simply knows the truth of what's going on in the world is like a freaking prophet. You think, I'm not getting paid for this. I would rather be playing video games. I've said time and time again, I'd rather be playing video games. Somehow I avoided whatever put everybody else into a trance. Maybe it was a medication that I was on. A lot of people, they do drugs and they see through the lies. I've been on a lot of medications because I have epilepsy. Maybe one of those medications caused me to be able to see through the lies. I don't know. I was always intelligent. Maybe I was just too smart to be deceived. But I was deceived also for a while. I was drinking fluoride like everybody else as far as I know. For whatever reason, I see what's going on here. I've joined up with a lot of other people who see what's going on, so it's certainly not just me. We have entire radio stations. We have networks. I mean, I hate to say it. Most of you are walking out there with 20 friends. We have thousands of friends. You know, and the media wants to give you the impression, oh, these are crazy kook conspiracy theorists. No, we're not. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're whistleblowers. What's the difference between a whistleblower and a conspiracy theorist? Can you name something anybody who's ever been referred to as a whistleblower spoke about that was not a conspiracy? Think about it. A conspiracy is two or more people conspiring to break the law. What does somebody blow the whistle about? Oh, our company is colluding with this other company to screw over all these people. Well, that's a conspiracy, isn't it? So we're not conspiracy theorists. We're whistleblowers. Some of us blow a lot of whistles. Some of us blow whistles every freaking night, and that's what I do. So tune in 10 p.m. every night. You're listening to Hardcore Harry, and I am death to the New World Order, streaming to you live at freethinkradio.com, unitedtruthseekers.com, and eternally at d2nwo.com.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost a sense downtown in New York behind me, down by the World Trade Centers, of just an area completely closed off as the rescue workers try to do their job. But this isn't the first building that has suffered as a result. We know that part of the Marriott Hotel next to the World Trade Center also collapsed as a result of this huge amount of falling debris from 110 floors of the two twin towers of the World Trade Center. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city, but completely disappeared now, and New York is still unable to take on board what has happened to them today.
Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon building when it collapsed. I mean, there were, I suppose, fears of possible further collapses around the area.
That's what you would hope, because this whole downtown area behind me has been completely sealed off and evacuated, apart from the emergency workers. That was done by the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, much earlier today because of, course, the dreadful collapse of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. But New York, very much a city still in chaos. The phones are not working properly, the subway lines are not working properly, and we know that down there near the World Trade Center there are 3 schools that are being turned into triage centers for emergency treatment. And I know that over in New York Harbor, where the famous Statue of Liberty is, there's a field hospital where 1,500 people are being treated, and we have heard, though it's unconfirmed as yet, that 100 New York City police officers have been taken there as well for treatment, but we do need to confirm.
If you are listening on Freethink Radio, then up next is your show. This is The Listener Show. Give us a call at 315-541-4031. Let us know what's on your mind. Also, remember you can tune in on your cell phone or mobile devices, find your internet radio playing application, and search for Freethink or D2NWO. You can tune in 24/7. I'd also recommend getting a Bluetooth headset. People won't even know you're listening. You could be driving a city bus. Screw the road. Listen to us. Again, the call-in number 315-541-4031. I'm out for the night. Death to the New World Order.